Hey guys, it's Mel. Welcome to the Millennial. I am going to attempt to do this all by myself today. Here we go. Get our names up here. As you can see, it's just me. So sorry, Billy is not here. I'm pre-recording so that we can take some time off for the holidays and Billy can enjoy his family. But we have a really great topic for you guys today. We wanted to wish you a very happy Thanksgiving as well from both of us, and that we are very grateful for all of you that watch, all of you that support and share and for the podcast as we're growing it here. We're very thankful for you, and we're just very blessed this year for everything that we have been able to do and share our stories and this podcast with you. So it is called Vintage is in, Hoarding has to go. Get it? Has to go, hoarding. Kind of funny, right? But I actually got to go around to a couple businesses. I had this idea when I was doing some of my work through my business about some vintage and retro things that are really kind of over all generations. I think that the thing that I love as a millennial is 80s classic rock, vintage band tees and some old antiques. A lot of the stuff that I keep in my house is a mix between old antiques and some new items and vintage things. So I just got to thinking when I was doing some projects with a couple businesses that they were actually bringing back some of their retro vintage designs, and I wanted to share them and just show that this is kind of happening all across the board right now with the trend of vintage and retro items. But then also I read a book called Things That Matter. I borrowed it from a friend, Kevin, and he sometimes watches, so thank you, Kevin, for letting me borrow it. It changed my world. It really did. It's a book about distractions. I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but it's about things that we need to really sometimes get out of our life. Minimalism is something that's we also talked about on the podcast about removing some things from our lives as far as actual things. But it's also things that are up here as well. So I just want to talk a little bit about the book and what I learned and share that with you. And also on Mondays, I'm going to start doing some we have Mel's moments at the end, but maybe we'll do like Monday mindfulness, Monday Mel's mindset. I don't know yet, but I'm going to start doing something on Mondays, just me sharing some of the other books that I've read and some of my just daily routines and habits that I've created to get myself in a better mindset. But this book really, really helped that. So I just wanted to share it. So, first up, I'm going to talk about one of my clients is called Gray Nation. They're the Pennsylvania State Police retirees for the troopers. And, I'm a big supporter of our police and our military and our troops. And I have been working with them for a couple years through also a company, Travel Champs, a local company that does printing. And recently, we were talking about the podcast and how we're trying to have other generations, relate and listen and watch and, get maybe some other generations on as guests and some topics that everyone will enjoy and how we can be that bridge between the gap and that we can, really bring people together. So this was one of the first topics that I thought would be really great. So Sam, that's with Gray Nation and the State Troopers Association for the retirees, was telling me that they had a T-shirt design that was a retro design from back, I think it was in the 60s or the 70s, and I have one. I am so excited to wear it. It says Penn State Police Rodeo Team. Did you know that there was a rodeo team for the Pennsylvania State Police? I did not. So I actually got really excited about this, and they gave it to me to wear. So they were up at the Bloomsburg Fair. They are selling a lot of their retail items like this and other Gray Nation products to raise funds. It's for the retirees of the Pennsylvania State Police. So if you'd like to support them, you can go to graynation.com, and you can also order some of their items to support them. But they were up at the Bloomsburg Fair, and an older gentleman walked by their booth and was looking at their t-shirts, and he pointed to this shirt and said, yeah, hey, I have that shirt, I have that exact shirt. And I think they were a little confused because they had just printed them maybe that week for the show, and they were like, no, no, you can't have this shirt, like we just printed them, or these are the first that we've made. And the guy goes, no, no, I have that shirt, I was on the rodeo team. And this design that Sam had recreated, it's distressed looking, obviously. So it looks older, but it is the same exact design as the original shirts. And somebody that was on the rodeo team stopped and said, I have that same exact shirt, the original. And he had bought one of the new ones. And I just thought the story was really great because the Troopers Association and the retirees are really trying to also get other generations and younger troopers and younger supporters involved in their organization. And this was something that sparked the conversation that, maybe you can use the clothing to attract some of the younger people, because one of the younger troopers had a conversation with Sam that they were going on eBay and Facebook Marketplace and searching and finding really old Pennsylvania State Troopers clothing used, and they were spending $100 sometimes on these shirts, but they love them and they thought they were so cool because they're vintage and they're retro and they can't get them anymore. So I said to Sam, they're telling you what they want. They want the younger troopers, that they want to support, their association, and their work and their career, and what they're here, sacrificing and spending their life, and you know that they want to wear these. So he said, that's, yeah, absolutely. And they're going to be starting to print more of these old retro designs, because not only is the younger generation wanting it, but the older generation is as well, because they are looking at something and almost reminiscing and saying, I had that shirt. I was on the rodeo team. So, if there's anybody out there that's listening, that's looking to, do that maybe for your business or your organization, I think a lot of millennials are really digging the old retro items. I wish that I still had a lot of stuff. When I did the podcast with Nell about us both being from Baltimore, if you watch that one, I said I really don't have anything from when I was younger. My old soccer jerseys and things that I did back in Baltimore before I moved to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So that's something to be said. Maybe there's some ways that you guys can take an old design and make it new, and it could really relate to a lot of the original people who had the items. It could be 30, 50, 70 years ago. And some of the younger people now are interested in that as well.
Those there are the history of our patches from the inception of the Pennsylvania State Police. Like, it started as the Highway Patrol, and it went to the State Police, the Motor Police, all the way up to our present day patch, which is up in the top right hand corner. That goes from 1988 to present.
And which one is going to be your next retro design for your
The
shirts?
red one from 1935 to
super
1937, cool. State Highway Patrol.
That's awesome.
Definitely support Gray Nation. I love working with them, and they're going to be coming out with some really cool retro designs as well. I just redid a logo for them, and I just think they're, they're on top of the ball with trying to, cater to different generations and how they can get their products out there. So the other business that I went to was the Penn Hotel, and another client of mine, my friend Eric, owns the Penn Hotel. And what was really interesting about this, I had found a sweatshirt on Facebook Marketplace, my favorite store, and it had the Penn Hotel logo, but it was super old and I didn't recognize it. And it almost looked like a baseball jersey tee where it's got the little, line on it. Very, simple and like a, that kind of font that goes with more of like that baseball look. And I bought it. I think it was 5 or 10 bucks, and I gave it to him as a gift. And when he got the gift, he actually said he wanted to frame it and that he wanted it to basically be a piece of art because it was vintage and retro. And he just loved the idea that it was an older logo. And before he framed it, he actually texted me and said, "You know what? I'm going to actually make new shirts and sweatshirts from this design. We're going to recreate this whole look." So I have a little video with them in it if you want to watch it right now, just so that you can see them. And I have a promo code for anyone that wants to buy it. Hey guys, it's Mel, and I'm here with Eric, owner of the Penn Hotel. And this podcast that we're doing this week is about some retro vintage things that millennials are loving, taking things that are older and turning them into new. So I'm wearing something, just a little history. I found this shirt for Eric with this design on it, and it was on Facebook Marketplace, I think I got it from the 80s maybe, and I gave it to him. He's going to frame this one, but he took the old logo. This is the new logo, right? Yeah.
New logo on the back.
New logo, and he put the old logo on the front of these, like I'm wearing here. And we just want to chat a little bit about what you love about the older look, and that millennials and a lot of even other generations are loving vintage and retro items.
These are available on our online store at www.thepennhotel.com.
Yeah. So also just give a little bit about. So what made you want to recreate the old?
Well, I think it's cool for the historical fact that we're still called the Penn Hotel, even though we're not technically a hotel anymore. So it kind of wraps things together of what our new version of the business is versus what it was historically.
Awesome. So make sure that you get your new but old logo of the Penn Hotel on their website. And what's there again?
www.thepennhotel.com.
Awesome. Thanks. So what did you guys think? I had a couple people when I posted the story of the new Penn Hotel sweatshirts that looked so cool that they wanted to buy them already. So the promo code is MYEL20, and it'll be 20% off if you want to score one of those retro but new sweatshirts. I have one in black, the one that I was wearing in the video. So I think that is really neat that a lot of the local places are bringing back some old retro designs. I also had a great time at Boho Hoarder. Rebecca invited me into her shop. I'd been there before, and I want you to watch a little video that I interviewed her. It's about 10 minutes, and you will get a great synopsis of what her business is, as far as thrifting and what items that she has that are vintage and retro as well, that are just really in right now for, like I said, millennials and all generations. So enjoy. Hello. Hi. Welcome to Boho Hoarder. Hey guys, it's Mel, and I'm here with Rebecca at her shop, Boho Hoarder. Oh my gosh.
Hi.
I actually wore my thrift find. I call them my
band?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I actually got this for like $2 or $3, and
That's crazy.
we are going to talk a little bit about her business, and also millennials and all ages I think are really loving to wear some vintage things, some retro things, taking things that are old and repurposed into new. And I know me personally, I love yard sailing, I love thrifting, so I'm super excited. I found her shop this summer.
Yeah.
I got a really cool hat here, and just want to talk a little bit about, tell us about your shop here, and we'll give you a little tour after, but about the shop and how you got started.
I actually found this place after I had quit my job. I was kind of at my wit's end. Did not know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I was kind of tired of being, miserable. I didn't want to be on the grind anymore,
We've talked about that on the podcast, with Billy, yeah.
Totally. I was ready to just be able to see my kids and do something I enjoyed and loved, and this place kind of just fell into my lap. So I didn't have to do that much to it, and it ended up being everything just fell together. But I've always been like doing flea markets, and before I had this actual shop, I did, you know, like curated markets all over.
So you would buy stuff,
yeah,
and then you would have a space somewhere that you would.
I
Then...
had like storage units or
Yeah.
like
Oh my
basements and yeah, big closets and stuff like that. Every closet in the house was mine, you know.
Yeah.
And I still store stuff like at friends' houses.
I
like,
see the name Boho Hoarder.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
So you were doing it, and I know that you had stuff
Yeah.
online, I think, before
Yeah.
you said. So before you actually got this physical space, you
Yeah.
were doing it for a while.
Yeah.
So-
And we would go to like, I do the Baltimore Flea and like the Harrisburg Flea,
Nice.
and yeah, and I loved like being able to talk to people and being able to like connect. And it's funny because you talk about like people of all ages loving vintage, and it's like for some people, like older generations, it's almost like nostalgia, I think, where, you know, just like you were talking about with this, you know, rodeo team, state police logo, I think it brings people back, and it just like connects people of all generations, you know,
absolutely.
and that's the cool thing about vintage,
you
know?
have the people that originally lived in that moment.
Yeah.
You know, lived
Yeah,
like
for
you know
sure.
actually were
Absolutely.
going. And I one of the bands I would have loved to see the Allman Brothers
sure.
before they stopped touring, but you know, the people that lived in that moment and got to experience it, and then people who didn't but still love it.
Yes.
Funny story, my brother, who's 16 years younger than me, he just turned 21, so he probably was like 18 at the time, maybe 17, I forget, and I was driving him to work, and he said, can I play some music?
Yeah.
And I said, sure, you know, Bill, you can put your iPod, you know, like a little iPad
Yeah.
or his phone, and he's playing 80s and Michael Jackson, and I'm like, hold the phone.
Yeah.
I was like, because I love, you know, and
This
I'm like,
is my
and
jam,
I mean,
right?
I'm 80s, you know,
Yeah,
85, but I love 80s music. Everyone knows I love classic rock. I even wore my little Guns N' Roses.
Aww.
You know, I wear,
Like repurposed,
you
right?
know, I
So
do.
cool,
I
yeah.
found that, but it's funny to think that, you know, at my age, you know, 16 years older than him, I'm, you know, he's loving the 80s music,
Right.
that I love, and I was born in the 80s, you know, so.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, my
definitely
daughter is like 9, and she's listening to like, you know, TLC, and she like wants the Space Buns constantly.
true. Yeah.
So she's bringing back the 90s, and that's like how I grew up, you know. So
I'll tell you, I sell a
it
lot.
all comes back around.
It does,
you
and
know?
I sell a lot on Facebook Marketplace. People know it's one of my favorite stores. But I sell a lot, and when my grandmother passed away, I put a lot of stuff up. And yeah, 90s is vintage.
Oh my God, 30 years. They
You know,
say 30
even
years
just
is
some
vintage.
of the, you know, vases, you know, even ceramics
for
and just
sure.
different stuff. It's not just
Yep.
clothing. So, but yeah. So what are some of the things that you love the most? You know, getting in here as finds.
I
your stuff.
love I always love, like, I have a addiction to like vintage lingerie. I love like slips and like anything silky, lacy, a little risque. I love like paintings. I always, even prints, it doesn't have to be anything that's like worth a lot of money. It's just like, I feel like you have that eye or you don't,
Right.
you know, like my shop is all about like the aesthetic, and everything is like curated and picked by me.
Right.
So it's all just kind of like stuff that I would wear, stuff that I love. A lot of times, like I would buy stuff that didn't even fit me, and I'm
Right.
like, okay, maybe I'll gain 10 pounds, maybe I'll lose 10 pounds, and like
Fit into it.
sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, and if you do or you don't, after like a couple years, you have to just get rid of it.
Right.
Sometimes I buy stuff for other people with other people in
Again,
mind, and I'm like, I can't just see this like sit on the
again,
shelf. I
hoard.
can't. Yeah,
Hoarding.
I
It's
know.
just the same thing.
Wah,
No, listen.
wah. It's
I-
not
we're gonna-
hoarding if your shit's cool.
Billy and I are going to talk about it because I just read a book. It's like the author's a minimalist, and it's about
Yeah.
getting rid of things.
I
and
know.
so that's
kinda
like my
struggle.
struggle.
too.
Of like,
For
you
real,
know,
I know.
you know, keeping stuff that
Yeah.
you just love and then getting rid of it. And I'm like, no, it's not hoarding. And I actually posted something on Twitter, I think, that said, I just got rid of all these clothes and all these things
Yeah.
from my house, and I'm trying to purge and you know, not hoard. But I put all of my Instagram stories in the highlights, and I go, is that a form of hoarding? Because I'm like collecting all of my...
I almost made an album today. I was going through looking for a picture. Actually, Sharkman.
It's
Harrisburg
hoarding. I
came
think
here.
it's hoarding.
It's hoarding. That's hoarding. And I was gonna put all of the pictures of like stuff I sold that I wish I hadn't, like
Oh, yeah.
in a file, or
Yeah.
like in an
save it
album.
so like you
I
can
know,
look
so
back
I
at
can look
it
back and be
go,
like, that was so cute.
"Oh, I love it.
Dang.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna I'm gonna show off some things here because I'm kind of looking around and I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to
I love this
share
setup right now
some.
too. Like,
So lots of vinyl over
Yeah.
here. I'm gonna show. Do you have people that are coming in to buy that specifically?
Definitely.
That's really been
Yeah.
coming back in the
I
last couple
definitely
years.
do, yeah.
A lot of my friends have gotten some record players and
Yeah.
really gotten into vinyl.
And you can get them like really affordable. The Crossley one is like Bluetooth too, and
Okay.
it's like, less. You can get it on Marketplace for
Yeah.
like less than $100.
Yeah.
And then the albums, unless they're first press, like most of them are like 15, 10.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
they're not expensive to collect albums now. So
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that
I have
one's
Fleetwood
on the-
Mac. I have a chain.
that's an Allman Brothers.
Oh yeah, I might
yeah.
need that one, guys. Ooh.
Yeah,
I
I got a couple in there. I think
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
I love furs too, like
furs.
vintage furs,
Yeah.
which is kind of a taboo, but
What about
I
the?
do.
The good question would be, what about the decades? Or times.
Yeah.
So do you go all the way back to even the? I know you're saying about vintage lingerie.
Yeah.
Like, what's kind of the time frame of things?
I have some like antique stuff. Like this girdle is probably from like the 40s, but for the most part, I think like I really vibe on that like 60s, 70s, like some 50s, but not really like the rockabilly. It's more like more kind of like when it, I guess kind of rockabilly, because that's kind of like the badass like
Mhm.
biker whatever Fonzie look. I think I started too on like the pinup look. That's probably how like I kind of entered into this, is like when I was like a teenager or preteen, I really liked like that pinup look.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably how I kind of like worked my way into this. But right now it's like more everything 70s. Like I really don't like the 80s.
Right.
I don't like the 80s.
Yeah.
I don't
I love
like a
80s
lot of-
music. I don't know
Yeah.
that I like 80s fashion. I don't know.
really like any of it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
70s for sure.
Yeah. And 90s,
yeah.
everything 90s. I love the
Yeah.
90s. Yeah, for
A lot
sure.
of 90s stuff's coming back. I've seen
Mhm.
too.
Yeah, everything.
And a lot of like people wearing like 90s baby
Mhm.
kind of stuff.
And grunge. Like grunge is always like,
Yep.
that's just always a look.
Yeah, and I think it's cool because we do the podcast. It's obviously called Millennials, but it's really for connecting with other generations
Right.
too. So I think that this is such a good topic because it's something that we're right. It does bring a lot people together.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
It brings people of all ages, like we said that
Definitely.
lady had gone through maybe just people that are old souls or just have like a
Yeah.
older sense of style or fashion,
Right.
or they like
And it says
their
something about
grandfather
you,
or
so
their
it's
grandmother.
more about like your
Character.
personality, right?
Yes, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. And like, I think it's big too, like in music,
Mm-hmm.
that if you do like that older music, it's saying like, you have a little bit, you can connect with different generations on like, everybody loves music,
Mhm.
and if it makes you feel something, like, you're connecting with someone that way,
Right.
so I think clothing does the same thing,
Right,
your
absolutely.
style. I actually have a friend who came in here that I only met from like opening this shop, and I literally wrote on the check to her the collection of my dreams. I bought hundreds of pieces from this
Wow.
amazing woman, Sarah, but she was like moving back to Puerto Rico. I tell this story all the time if you've ever been in here. And she was turning 80, moving back to Puerto Rico, and she had 100% linen, cashmere, silk, and wool. That's all she wore. Her
Wow.
mom was a seamstress. Like, I bought the most beautiful pieces from her, and I mean, now we're close friends.
Right.
She's 80 years old.
Right.
Like, there's 50 years,
Absolutely.
almost 50 years between us.
But it brought you together through the fashion and
we
through
have
the
the
clothes.
exact, and we just found so many more things like that we have in common, and now we're best buds.
Absolutely.
I'm going to Puerto Rico.
Well, I think it's neat. Actually, it shortens the gap between the
Right.
ages. I as my grandmother was getting older, there were a lot of conversations that we had about our divorces and relationships and just life that I wish I had had sooner, with her. But because sometimes that gap of that age is so, they won't relate to that.
Right,
Or they, this. And I really envy the people that are really close with their grandparents
I
too.
know, I
And
hear
that
you.
could be something that could really bring people together is,
Yeah.
the collection of things that they have. And,
For sure.
clothing.
I have a lot of people that come in and they're like, oh my God, I had this. Oh my God, I wore this. Oh my gosh, like my grandma had this, that same picture hung in my grandma's living room, my whole life. Or like, oh my gosh, that couch. Like, I remember, you know, sitting at my grandma's with TV dinners, like,
Yeah.
you know, on Friday nights watching whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think people come in and it's just like nostalgic for them.
Right.
You know, you can find something like definitely that's from your era, like that's your vibe, you know.
Right.
So, and I think too, like with older people, and they're saying like, you know,
Yeah.
oh, this generation that, and like hating on us a little bit.
Yeah. Yes. This is also why we do the podcast, so that we
We're
can
cooler than you think.
debunk
Like,
all of the
right.
hate and the stereotypes, because we are
know.
into, this is one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this topic was, you know, we are into older things.
Right.
And it is something that can connect us
Yeah.
with some of the older generations and say, hey, we're into the same thing. And, oh, you like that? I mean, I really honestly, it's probably started 5-6 years ago with a group of friends. You know, they're 50s, 60s, going into 70. I mean,
Yeah.
my dad's
Yeah.
70, but I actually was spending a lot of time, you know, going out and to, you know, different music, you know, live
Yeah.
music, and
Yeah.
with a lot of couples that were, you know, 10, 20 years older than me.
Sure.
And I love it. And I was just away with a group that's older, and I mean, it was just a blast
Yeah.
because I'm into that music, and, you know,
Yep.
just
You can always find something in common, you know. My dad, like, I grew up with my dad listening to like John Denver and James Taylor and stuff, and so I think like that probably helped me get into this too. My pap sold bikes at the flea market, like at the Big M, when it was called that before it was like Saturday's Market,
Yeah.
you know, before they tore it down. But you know, plus we lived like cheap. I was the
Yeah.
youngest of 4 kids, so hand-me-downs were like our favorite thing, you know. I never got my own clothes, you know.
Right. Well, and
Not
that's
until I was
funny
much
that
older.
you say that about, I grew up when I was young listening to 50s and 60s music in
Yeah.
the car. My mom had oldies music on
Yeah.
all the time.
Mhm.
And I know, you know, 90% I could sing, you know, along
Every
with
word, yeah.
50s and 60s.
I
like,
hear you,
it-
yeah.
it's funny because music is a big thing for me in my
Yeah.
life. And so, yes, I'm really glad that it's something that you have here that you know, can bring
Yeah.
people together. But
I like it. Usually I'm
um,
playing stuff too. So I'm
yeah.
always trying out the records and playing, you know, playing all kinds of different stuff. So whether it's like, I have a Bill Withers one right now
oh,
that's like on
lovely
repeat.
day.
I love it.
lovely day, right?
So good.
I love Bill Withers.
Yeah.
So
Elton
my other
John.
thing that you know, I want to see is if people are, now we talked about you going out and finding the pieces, so like super
Yeah.
special to you. Does anybody come to you with things like you had said that the one lady was bringing stuff in?
Yeah, so actually what happened with her is that because she was moving, I told her I would come to her. So my mom and I went there like for hours for a couple days and just like pick through all her stuff. So she had amazing quality stuff. So like I, you know, paid her for it, but there was times that people like, you know, just drop stuff off. I
Yeah.
take donations and stuff, and I work with a recovery center or a recovery house in Pembroke called Marty Manor. And actually, the woman that runs it was just here earlier picking up like tons and tons of donations I've had stacked for her. So anything like I can't use goes to
Nice.
them, you know. And we were just talking about, you know, people in downtown like Tent City and what they need, and like, you know, I'm probably gonna do some kind of canned food drive for like, or Christmas dinner
Nice.
thing. So yeah,
Well,
we
let
try
us
to,
know.
like,
We'll post it on for
Cool.
the podcast too.
yeah, we try to be part of the community and do, you know, what we
absolutely.
can.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's really interesting for me. I just like looking at old stuff. Like that's why I started yard sailing, you know, in my 20s, and it was a time for me. I put on my hat. I'd leave, you know, 6 a.m.
Oh my
It was like
gosh,
me
yeah.
time. I'd had my coffee, and I just like to go to the community yard sales where I called myself a professional because I knew which ones were
Yeah.
more
You could weed
worth
them
the
out.
time.
You could weed them out. No
But I
baby
just
toys,
love-
right?
Yeah, no. I'm like, I just want to like look through like
I
people's
know,
stuff, and
me
it was like
too.
weird. But I'm like,
It's
what
like
was
looking
their
into
life?
people's
I know,
lives.
it's like,
Yeah.
what was their life like?
We're
so
nosy.
then?
That's what
I know.
We're just being nosy.
I'm a creep, but
I know, me too.
I also got into, but I do think it's this really cool thing of like the find, and that's
Yeah.
why we were talking about. You know,
For sure.
you go to places, and I go to antique malls a lot, and I get really excited when I find something super interesting.
Yeah.
And, you know, I joined the country club in Hershey learning to golf. The antique mall there, super old patches.
Yeah.
Bought them, and
I had a lot of those. I
I'm
love
still
that.
still gonna do it. But I promised my friend I would put it on a shirt for him.
Yeah.
So I then so antique malls I love. You could get lost in them, and it's like 3 hours go by,
Yeah.
and I'm like, my ex-husband would be like, where are you? Are you still there? You know?
No, totally.
But I loved it. And then I graduated to estate sales. And I was telling you about that because there's a company, it's just the estate sale company. And I got really into going, and it's in someone's home. So you actually get to talk about go through their life. But sometimes they're moving and sometimes they passed and their family is looking to do that. But what is interesting is I started working part-time about 4 years ago for the company, and we would go in and we would organize everything. Go by room, and then get it ready for the sale. So I kind of got to see both sides as a shopper, and then also, kind of getting it organized. And that was really neat to see people's things. And there are some that are just everyday items, and then there's some stuff that's really cool.
Even like, I have no qualms about like walking through a house that's like totally trashed, I don't care. I'll take my shoes off before I walk in the door, when I get home. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm digging through box lots and like, I don't go to a lot of antique markets. I do a lot more like, I like a yard sale. I sometimes like estate sales, but I like a flea market. Yeah. And not even necessarily for clothes, but like for everything else. Like, I'll get up at 3:30 in the morning on Sundays. Not now because it's freezing cold, but like when this place, in Reading, when they're like in season, I'll get up at 3:00 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, and go up there to be there by like 5:30 or 6 when they open. And
that's a professional.
I love it. I can be home by like 10 o'clock then. My kids are awake. They had breakfast. Then I have a whole day ahead of me. Like, maybe I need a nap, but or like an extra latte. But
I'm gonna need to look into that.
It's so fun. I'm not telling you my secrets.
I know. I'm not
telling you where. You'll have to come with me. That's
probably I will go with you, but it's probably for the best also. I'm trying to get rid of stuff, but
that's kind of a dilemma.
But I feel like it's a good mix. Like, I've gotten rid of stuff to where I feel I can then, find pieces. And
I always think like, and I've heard this, they say like, if you look at something and it brings you joy, like, keep it, you know? And like, my stuff just like, it makes me happy. Like, even if I have like 12 dish sets, you know, like, I want to be able to change them out. Like, I'm not the same person to use the same dishes every day, like, I want to be able to like throw a tea party with antiques for my kids. Like, I want to be able to do that stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think the same thing. I mean, I don't try to keep stuff that I don't use, but if you use it, I do have a Shelly teacup saucer plate I will gift you. It was my nanny's. Yes, I have it, and I had put it up on Facebook Marketplace. They're actually a really good value. And I sold one of them, and then I haven't sold the other one, so that'll be my gift to you.
Thank you, appreciate you. I love tea sets.
It's super pretty. It's purple and pink, and So, but now I'm thinking of like giving you a lot more stuff that I have.
I'll take it. I like all this stuff.
I know.
Don't tell them, because like I just moved, so all my stuff's like in my friends' houses or like in my ex's garage. And,
it's there.
It's somewhere.
You'll find them. But so where can everyone find you on social media and website and stuff?
I have a Facebook. It's just Boho Hoarder. I have an Instagram at Boho Hoarder. I do have a website. That's bohohoarder.com. I can't say that I really like post all my stuff on it because I don't know. It's on every other social media site, so it's like, that's kind of exhausting for me. But, because I'm an old soul, and I don't want to be on my phone or the internet constantly. So that's my dilemma.
Social media.
If there's anybody in PR that wants to, or in marketing that wants to like, hook me up with that. We'll trade clothes. I'll trade you cool stuff.
I have a couple people I can
Please,
send you.
Seriously.
It's all about connecting, right?
I can't take it. But so I have everything, Instagram, Facebook. I have a Depop too, which I sell a lot of stuff on. Sometimes I sell eBay stuff. Is it like Poshmark? It's like Poshmark, but it's pretty much just vintage stuff.
Oh, nice.
Like, unfortunately now, I think like, the cheap stuff is like infiltrating, like cheaply made.
Or a fake thing,
stuff
that's not authentic.
Yeah, so which like I sell fur coats on a website called Tradesy.
Okay,
like, and they get, that's like all name brand stuff. It's like verified, that's like the higher end stuff. So I do a lot of that too, but I have like everything.
Okay, good.
Just under my name,
Yeah, we'll post everything with the podcast. We'll post it, and you guys will have to come check it out here. But we'll share some pictures at the end of the podcast with Billy once we chat a little bit about it and yell about
Awesome.
it. So stay tuned for some photos from the shop, and I might just snag a few things while I'm here. So thanks, guys, and come visit Boho Hoarder and Rebecca.
Bye. Thanks.
I hope you liked our video that Rebecca and I made. We had a really fun time, and it's just a reminder also to support our local businesses while we're doing our holiday shopping. And I will put her information and the other businesses in the posts that you guys can, support them. So just really love the idea of everything vintage and retro, and how things are coming back and we can repurpose some of these things that were once loved by somebody else, and now we can love them in a new way. But as far as the book that I was reading, it was called Things That Matter, and it's about distractions. So while I want to talk about us, getting vintage and old items, and obviously Rebecca's store is called Boho Hoarder, and we talked about hoarding. One of the things that in the book about distraction and having a lot of things, it's actually the opposite, is minimalism and getting rid of a lot of things. So when I read the book, I really, was in a place that I was trying to get rid of things in my home. I was trying to declutter my actual space. They talk about, which I experience too, when you have things around and there's just clutter everywhere, it's visually distracting. It's hard for your mind sometimes to even get things done. I have to stop what I'm doing sometimes and clean up. If I come home from an event and I have a whole tub of stuff, or if I have all this stuff sitting, right in my foyer, like I have to get that done first sometimes, because when you're walking by it, it's just in your head, and it's just there. I'm sure a lot of you, can relate with that stuff. But as far as things that we have, um, it is things that are just taking up space sometimes, and there is something to be said about just releasing some of the things, like even purging, when you go through your closet and you get rid of the clothes that you had not worn for a couple years and seasons, and you get rid of all of these bags of clothes. It feels really good just to get rid of things sometimes. And you also know that if you're donating it, you're helping other people as well. But this book about distractions, it just talks about things, and I started getting more and more um relatable in my life right now. And this year, how I've really removed a lot of things. Could just be me selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace. I sell a lot of things. I have a lot of things from different moves. In my basement that I just want to get rid of. I don't want to take with me again, on another move, or I just don't want it in my basement, really, to be honest. So I just really started selling a lot of things. And while I love yard sailing and estate sailing, and finding old new pieces, I've slowed down on collecting things, and I've really just gotten rid of them just to create some more physical space, visual, but also mental. I think that one of the things is that the book also says about having things and that they're distractions. You know, the retail therapy when you're sad, or when you're upset, and you go and you buy things to make yourself feel better. It's not really making yourself feel better, and you're spending money which you probably shouldn't be spending stuff on, for the wrong reasons. So there's something to be said about also, I think, just collecting things to collect them, especially when it's materialistic and it's material things that are there to impress other people, or are all these name brand things that you're just trying to show, on a facade on the outside, maybe to be more likable or keep up with the Joneses, or to impress people. But there's something to be said um, about that type of distraction, keeping us away from more of the authenticity that we need to be focusing on. Other distractions as well. It talks about relationships. I know that there's been times in my life, obviously I've been single for a couple years, but there's times where you do get lonely, and it's maybe you have friends that invite you to go to dinner or have drinks, or maybe are texting and keeping up a conversation, or connection that you might have that's on a friend level. But as we have to face sometimes the realities that it's not going to be anything more than a friendship. If you're not there on like a relationship level, then why keep the texts going? I'm sure there's people out there that are watching that have this where they have one or two people or several people that they just keep up text conversations with and of the opposite sex, and I thought about it a lot lately, and it's a distraction. It's a distraction that fills a void, for a time. But at the same place, I said to myself, um, obviously looking for a relationship, or eventually what's going to happen with those conversations with those people that you're keeping up with just to keep up with, because you're just distracting yourself. Is it going to be a cutoff? Where's the conversation going to say, hey, I met somebody, I'm dating somebody, and like it's not appropriate to text you anymore? And when I started thinking about that, having those conversations, if there's other men that are texting me, why am I even keeping up with it right now? Why, what? So this book really makes you think about relationships and things that we do to distract ourselves. It's not only just distracting from the idea that I'm single and I'm lonely sometimes, but it's distracting us from preparing ourselves for our next partner. So knowing that we're going to be okay, not needing to just have that attention, and filling that void is really interesting, that I thought about, and I made some changes in my life because of that, to just sort of prepare for the next step. And another thing that distraction and things that we're again, it's just I related this book to Hoarding because it's about minimalism. But the idea, even with hoarding, is not just physical things, it's emotional, mental, and psychological as well. And I think that we hoard a lot of things in our brain: negativity, the past, victimizing, and blaming others, and just holding on to things that you might negatively be hanging on to, but also that you might be keeping something present still. So, if you're talking about things, or if you're continuing to bring them up, or, like I said, playing the victim, you're never really going to get past all those things if you're still holding on to things that you really need to let go of and get rid of, out of your mental space, out of your head, out of your heart. And it's just doing the work on yourself. This book was really great to give examples of how you can do that, mentally and emotionally, and unpack some of those things. I love all the words that we're using, like hoarding, holding on to, letting go, unpack. It's all relatable. But I felt really connected to one of the chapters about distractions through, even like, not affirmation, but accolades and almost false praise. So that there's ways that I think that people can be distracted by the compliments and praise. And that happened to me, I think, with my business. I started realizing that so many people have, my whole 20s and even in my early 30s, have really pumped up the idea, oh, Melissa has her own business and she's really great at what she does and her work is great, which I do agree with. But oh, she's just all of this great praise, and and everyone introduced me, and even just almost glorifying a lot of things, which is nice. It gave me confidence, and it was really nice, testimonies and referrals. But I also think that it held me back and it distracted me from doing things further that I needed to, because I was hearing all of that praise. So, hearing all of that, it makes you feel great, and, and you definitely really appreciate it, but it almost doesn't allow you to have that urge to push forward to do more and to need to be more. And I think it held me back, and it wasn't anything anyone was doing. It was me, and how I was treating it. But that I think that, that attention, that praise, that glorification of things, and it could be in a lot of different ways, that it can hold us back from really trying, to find out what we really want and who we want to be and where we want to go, because we almost settle for that, what we're being told from everybody. We're allowing it to distract us, and we're not getting past that stage of where, the public eye. So I really recommend the book. I think that, it's not just the idea of getting out, things from your home and trying to, live a lot more free of things. It doesn't have to be junk. It could be things that are very meaningful. But I also think that there's something to be said about, the idea of getting out of that, the space, that you have, with just physical things, that we really don't need a lot. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment after living in a 3-bedroom home, and you really figure out what you need and what you don't need. And then you also know when you can and can't afford different things, that, you know what you can live off of. And then, here back to a 3-bedroom home again, you almost just feel like you need to fill it with stuff, and you don't. And it just starts to get expensive sometimes. But then you just start collecting things. And I'm at the point where I want to remove those things. I think it's a lot of other things that have been in my life. I had to, remove people. I removed some events. I removed some clients. And I think this is a really great book if anybody is really interested in, figuring out what might be distracting them from getting to their potential and, their greatness. And that's just really where I was at, and it changed my world. So I hope that you enjoyed the podcast today. As far as the meme, I don't have one. I'll be very honest. I wasn't very prepared, but I also, will come up with Mel's moment. And Billy usually does that a lot better with his deeper voice. Um, but all in all, I really just wanted to share this, book that I read. I think we can all relate to it. Billy and I are trying to, have some guests on in the next couple weeks that we can really bridge, the generations together, and know that, we're all going through the same things. So what I would love is to share some of more of my books and the things that I'm, going through on a little bit of my journey this year, and in hopes that, other people can relate and it can help other people to not be as distracted. It's taken a couple years for me to make some of the changes that I was in, some bad habits for a long time. And, we can definitely, do this together. And I hope that you enjoy the ride ahead of whatever we're going to call this, Mel's, mindfulness, or Monday millennial mind mindsets. We'll get something good. We'll get something creative. But hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I do think that this book, Things That Matter, has really, allowed me to feel very appreciative also for the things that I do have, and not focus on the things that I don't have, and that I want. It's just really been, a great Thanksgiving, and I'm very blessed and grateful for everyone that I have in my life. And, I just really hope that you guys had a great time with your family and friends. And we'll see you next week live with Billy at 2 p.m. Bye.